All right. Well, hello everybody. It's good to see you all here again. Familiar faces and names, and then some new people, I think, which is great. Um, so we're here with Steve Quadrini today, and I just wanted to give a little background on Pandion for those of you who are new, and then Steve will take it away from there. So, Pandion Music Foundation is a fairly new 501c3 nonprofit, just got started with these workshops in October, giving free workshops each week for music creators and emerging artists who are looking for more information and might not have those resources otherwise. And we've got a lot in the works and planned for the upcoming year. And then we've also done quite a bit since October, which has been really exciting. We just ran a really cool sync festival with 2indie last week, which was amazing. I think some of you were there, and some of you tuned in virtually, which was great. So thank you for all of you who participated in that and who donated. We raised, I think, just about $3,000 from that. So that was amazing. And lots of connections were made, people in the music industry, and got to network a lot, which was really cool. So that's an annual event we're doing with 2indie now, which is exciting. And that was our second one already, second syncathon. So yeah, that'll be again next year, and then we've got other events that we're working on, and we're going to start doing live streaming weekly for mental health and wellness for artists. That'll be streamed from our Instagram and Facebook. Um, and then we do these workshops every week. So it's been really exciting. And thank you everybody who comes to these weekly events, and all of our mentors that have participated as well. And Steve's here today, so that's very
Uh,
exciting. And Steve is a mastering engineer. He's gonna give us more information on mastering, why it's important, and yeah, really excited to hear from you, Steve.
all right.
If you
You
want to
can hear
give a
me?
little, yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will start.
Cool. If you want to give a little background just on yourself first, that'd be great. And then, yeah,
Yeah, I'm a mastering engineer. This is Studio ADM mastering, and I hopefully I make people's music sound good. Pretty simple. So I was asked to do this, I wasn't sure exactly like how to approach it. I didn't want to do like the show you how I master something and and then leave it at that because I think I've seen people have seen that a million times and it doesn't really apply if you're not in the same room and you don't have the same mindset and you don't have the same skill set. You can see people doing something a million times, like watching someone play basketball or a sport, but then when you go to play it, you're not very good. So I decided to ask you to reach out to your community there, see what questions they had, and maybe I can, shine the light on a little bit of that. So there was some cool questions. I have a little bit of notes, so I might look at them. So bear with me once in a while. I'm
great.
going to go over now. Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank
Yeah.
you. This is
Okay.
perfect.
So I'm just going to go over roughly what I'm going to talk about, and hopefully I can go over everything. I'm not sure if I'll get to it, but so first I'm going to go over a little bit of like mastering concepts, um, kind of why you need to do it. Maybe in certain scenarios you don't need to do it. Um, Listening, your room, speakers, like what levels to listen at. Then I'll go over like streaming, loudness. Everyone wants to know about loudness. How loud should I go? What's too loud? What's not loud enough? Um, I'll go over what I do, so that'll kind of give people an idea. Um, you don't have to follow what I do, but just that. Then I'll go over like some rules and guidelines that like the streaming services um, have out there, and they're not like I'll go over. They're not hard and fast rules, but I'll go over it after that. Then I'm gonna go over some mastering like alternates, like instrumental mixes, acapellas, things of that nature. What you need to do there, how different it is from the original mastering process. Um, Surprised it's not that different. And then I'm gonna go over things because I get into a lot of music and I find a lot of I don't want to call them errors, but they're like a consistent thing that a lot of people are doing that I always have to go back and say, hey, listen, can you change that? Can you turn that down? Can you fix this? Can you take that off? So I'm going to go over a few of those things where I always get these things happening. And so be aware of them and try not to do them. Um, I'm going to say a lot of the times there's going to be a lot of maybe work. Sometimes you're going to hear me say that could work. That means when I say this stuff, I never do anything every time. Like I never do the same, sorry, I never do the same thing every time. It applies to what the music tells me it wants me to do. So you don't have a certain chain that you're just gonna, like a preset and you're gonna put on there and it's gonna master your music. That really doesn't apply. AI is a little bit different. I'm not going to go over a lot about that. That's because it's actually kind of listening to your music. So it's technically not a preset, but I may get into that, may not. But yeah, you kind of want to stay away from like preset stuff. And then I will go on over things you can do. Like I'll try and simplify because I'm going to go at this with the mindset of like the DIY, not the you're a mastering engineer, because there is a large divide there. And I'll try and as I go, I don't want to go over the whole thing of what's a pro level, what's do it yourself. I just want to go over a few concepts once I get to them of what the differences are. Hey Rebecca, how are you? I see you
I'm
there.
good. Hi,
Nice to
Steve.
finally talk to you face to face.
I know we've been working
Yeah,
together for a while now. I just absolutely
yeah.
adore Steve's work. You're just amazing. You're like a wizard, making us
Thank
all
you, thank you.
so.
Well, it already sounds good. It already sounds good. I don't do that much.
Yes, you do. Thank you. So I'm so
Okay.
excited.
Yeah, always. Okay, I will continue. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to go right into it now. Um, so first things first is if you're going to master yourself, um, it requires a good acoustically treated room um, and monitoring. But the main thing is the acoustics in the room because your room is going to lie to you. It's not going to tell you the truth. And that's where the divide is, where I was saying we're between the mastering engineer. We've spent a lot of money in our rooms. We've spent a lot of time on our rooms. We know the room. We know how it sounds. We know how it translates. Um, and if your room is lying to you, as a DIY, you can do a lot of things where you can use like software-based tools. Isotope has a lot of good stuff, things of that nature to get you, to take away the guessing game, sort of. You can do your card tests and your different devices. It may take you hours, days, maybe even months, whatever it is. You'll be wasting a lot of time. That's where having a good room and a good monitoring system is super important when it comes to mastering. Um, and as a mastering engineer, I can't waste a lot of time. I can't waste months, weeks, days mastering 2 or 3 songs. It just wouldn't work. I wouldn't be able to do it. Right. So that's why that stuff's very important for me. And then also the DIY part is super important. No one's saying you can't do it on, you know, lower end speakers and a room that's semi treated. You absolutely can, but it's going to take you a lot longer, and you're going to have to like figure a lot of the inconsistencies and the bugs. And the thing is that when you're doing your own music, that's also the divide as well, because you're getting the stuff you've built from the ground up, or if it's from a producer, you're still getting like kind of the building blocks of the puzzle. As a mastering engineer, I'm just getting the stereo file. Here it is. And I don't know what you did. I don't know how you made it. I don't know anything. I just have to listen to it with a critical ear and think about it and say, okay, does this feel balanced? Does it feel good? Are people going to connect with it? My goal as a mastering engineer is I am always trying to create space and depth. I want basically the music, sounds kind of weird, but to come out of the speakers. I don't want it to be here. I want it to feel like three-dimensional in a way, right? So I just dropped my phone notes. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of the approach that I always try and do, and I hope I do that most of the time. But as the DIY, you are approaching it sort of in a different mindset because you've already ran the race. You already built it from the ground up. You maybe played the guitar, or recorded that um, with your equipment, then you maybe mixed it, or um, made the composition, did the production, whatever it is. You've done a lot, and your ears will kind of desensitize to certain things, right? And then a lot of times what happens is, as a mastering engineer, when I master something and I send it back, the client will be like, oh, you know what? I actually wanted to change this. And the reason they do that a lot of times is because now they're hearing it different, right? It's in a different, it's even a little bit of a difference. Their brain is going to pick up on it because they've heard that a million times, right? Now they're hearing it a million one, but it's a little bit different. They're like, oh, wait, that snare. I should have changed the snare, or I should have made the vocal this ad lib higher, or something like that, right? So that happens a lot, which can be a good thing because you can, get it sounding even better. So now we'll go over, I went over the room and the speakers. I'll go over a little tip for listening. This is for mixing as well, but extremely important for mastering. I'm not a mix engineer, so I can't even mix a drink. So take that with a grain of salt. I just master. So when I'm listening, and when the people that are doing it themselves are listening, keep a consistent volume level. Um, SPL, which like I listen at about 70 to 75, and you can turn it up once in a while to check, which is good. You should. Um, when you listen at a consistent level, you're gonna get consistent bass, consistent high end, consistent mid range, right? If you keep turning the levels up and down, and left, right, and here and there, if you turn it too high and you listen too long, too high, you may start turning down the bass, right? You may get too much bass in your room, and you may be like, oh, okay, I got to turn down the bass now. And then you go and listen to it later, oh, there's not enough bass. Or you might turn down the high end, because the high end's piercing. As you turn things up, the high end will get brighter. So you turn down the high end, then you listen to it later, lower. Oh, it's not bright enough. Then I got to change that. So once you start listening at a consistent level, oops, my phone again. You listen at a consistent level, you will get an ear for how things should be balanced. Um, and because you're listening to that same level over and over and over again, and you're not really deviating from that, it's just much easier to gauge things. Also, on the flip side of that, before you even start listening, what you can do is, there's a technique where you can acclimate your ears. You can use reference material like other songs, and I suggest you only pick a few that you know really well. Don't keep bringing in new stuff. Listen to stuff that you've known forever, and you'll understand how it translates in your room. And then once you keep listening to that, you'll know. So you can listen to that before you start your mastering session, and you're like, okay, the bass sounds like that. And you have to know that these are like songs that sound good. I would suggest like songs that have been released from like top artists or whatever. Um, Stuff that you just know that works, right? Or stuff that you want to emulate, things like that. But you want to keep listening to those over and over all the time whenever you're doing a session. Like I said, don't bring in new stuff, because then you're not going to really know exactly what it is. Like it's just going to change your perception, right? Sorry, I ramble on a lot, so stop me if I do. But that's a good technique to start you off, to acclimate your ears to where you have to get to, and then hand in hand is the listening levels. Don't go too high. Stay between whatever you feel comfortable with, is not like blowing your brains out, right? And also not too piercing. um, at a good level, which I recommend 70 to 75 SPL, which works great for me. I usually very rare go over that. I do test it at high volumes once in a while, just to see if the mid range is like blasting my ears off or something, but for very short periods of time. I got to work all day, so I don't want to fry my ears. Um, so that's that. That's the listening level, which is super important. The next one I'm going to get into, the second part, is loudness. Everybody wants to know about loudness, right? So I, for me, it all depends on the music. I am not going to, I like loud stuff, don't get me wrong. I am not going to destroy somebody's music just to get it loud. because they've spent all that time putting in all those hours, maybe working with all these mix engineers and producers and recording engineers and all that stuff, probably paid a lot of money. And then they come to me, and then I'm going, here you go, here's your product. It's super loud, but it sounds like crap, right? Because it's super loud. Oh, I've ruined all your dynamics and all that stuff. Basically, I've taken your song, if I made it super loud and it couldn't go super loud, I just ruined everything you just gave to me, right? I'm not going to do that. So it all depends on the music. The music will dictate. Like, the thing is, not all music can go loud. That's the thing. Some can and some can't. It's just the nature of the beast. You can't force, well, you can force it, but you're going to get distortion. And if you want distortion, by all means, go ahead. But you know, why make your music sound like shit? Don't. So keep it to a level where you're minimizing distortion, and the music will sound better. Like, we like dynamic range. And also, at the other side of the fence is all the streaming services, they have lowered the bar for loudness now. So you can get away with going a little bit more dynamic now, instead of like hitting those huge loudness peaks that everybody would used to do back in the well, I wouldn't say back in the days, not that long ago, but you know, it was getting ridiculous. And that's one good thing that came out of like this reg it's not, they're not really rules, because you can still go loud. But it's kind of brought, like, for me, for instance, I am as not as loud as I was last year. Um, so, and I think it's amazing, because I love when the music is more dynamic. You know, your ear picks out these little details now, and it's like, you know, I hate limiting, right? I hate using a limiter, and it's like the worst thing, because it just, you know, chops things off and brings a dynamic range down. But you know, it is the nature of the beast too. You got to protect the music too, so it doesn't distort, which is one thing, but we also need to get louder. But dynamic range is a huge thing, and when you destroy that, you basically, you ruin the intention of the music. You ruin the connection from the listener to the artist intent, right? Because that's like the part that when I listen to music, I mean, this might sound weird, um I see it in colors. I think it's called, I forgot the name of it now. There's a term for it, but so I kind of
Synesthesia, I
see the
think.
music.
Is it
Yeah, that's the
synesthesia?
one.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Cool.
yes, yes. That's right. I didn't know that's what it was. A friend told me one time, because I'm like, yeah, I see music in colors, and he's like, oh, that's that synesthesia. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So I see it in colors. I don't even know where I was going with this now, but I see it in colors. And when my phone keeps dropping, the music like just doesn't connect with me, I don't see the colors anymore. That's usually what happens when things are like super, super loud, right? It just it doesn't it just doesn't vibe with me anymore. Usually with the way I see, I want to, when I master music, I want to be able to see into the music. That's how I approach it. Like, I want to be inside it, and it to just envelop me. And that's when I find that the music becomes its most beautiful, right? When it's like super, super loud, what happens is the music just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But yeah, it's louder, but it's not better, you know? And it doesn't matter to be like super loud, honestly, especially now, right? Things are getting lower and lower and lower. So, you know, like I said, I'm not as loud as I once was. I'm still slightly loud, and it depends on the music, right? It depends. Like dance music, if it's for DJs and stuff like that, um, I will go super loud if I can, if the music lets me go loud, right? Um, for more dynamic stuff with like stuff, acoustic instruments that very articulated, and you know, very nice vocals with little breaths, and you know, these beautiful things, why destroy them, right? I mean, I'm still going to go slightly loud, but not super loud. So Spotify and Apple and all those streaming things, this is what I'm trying to get at, is they have like minus 13, minus 14 LUFS and minus 12. They're all kind of one off from each other. one higher than the next. I don't know if they're competing with each other or whatever it is, but I can just tell you right now, 50% of the engineers that I know abide by it, and the rest don't. Um, I don't personally. And the reason I don't is because I like loud stuff, but also sometimes music does not, because we're so conditioned throughout 20, 30 years, let's say 20 years. Yeah, it's 30 years actually. Wow, I'm getting old. So the music we're kind of, we know this compressed sound, right? And it's actually become the sound of the music. So when things are a little too dynamic, we kind of think it's off. It's hard to explain, but if someone were to hear it, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, it sounds good," but it would be like a song with absolutely no limiting, and you can kind of tell there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds great, right? Don't get me wrong, but you just, there's not that sound to it. It's kind of missing something, right? So when you're doing your own music, I'm going to get back to this DIY part. So I kind of went off from the mastering engineer thing. So when you're doing your own music, just go as loud as you want until your music gets, like, don't destroy your music. You worked so hard on your music, don't destroy it. Nobody cares. Really, nobody cares. The only time your music is going to sound better, louder, is when you listen to the same track, that song, and one is louder and one is not, you know, back to back. When you have it on a playlist, there's a different song before, even if it was louder, it doesn't matter. That song could be, you know, for the sake of a crappier song than yours, right? Or they don't connect with it as much as they connect with yours. The loudness doesn't matter. People have a volume knob. They will turn it up. But like I said, you can still go slightly loud, right? Just don't aim for these disgusting levels of loudness for absolutely no reason. If you just think that's what you have to do to compete, you're not competing with anything. You know what I mean? If A&R people, that's a different beast altogether. They want stuff super loud because I, that's just what they want. But doesn't mean that your stuff has to be like the loudest in the world. It's not that, like, if you were presenting your music to somebody and it's all distorted, but and it's loud, do you think they're gonna like it? Maybe, maybe not. But if it was in its most beautiful form, slightly loud, right? Then it's, wow, this is really good stuff, right? There's nothing wrong with it anymore, right? You can't say, oh, I got it loud, but it's a little distorted, but it's really, really loud. So what I'm trying to say is you can't force loudness. Like I said before, some things can go loud, some things cannot. Like, I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, like, I see something here. So radio, I missed that comment, but um, so for instance, stuff that has like huge dynamic range, which means like there's loud parts and really quiet parts, um, and they deviate from each other quite a bit. That stuff usually you will not be able to push super loud without a few, tweaks and a couple of tricks here and there, because what's happening is that loud part is already super loud, right? So you're going to start pushing the level up to the ceiling, which is, once you hit zero, right? That's where the limiter comes in and starts pushing it down, right? So you're going to start pushing that over, and it's just going to start pushing it down, and it's already super loud. So those quiet parts are coming up, but also those super loud parts are coming up, and that's where you're going to get your distortion, right? So that's where really dynamic stuff is not really going to work super loud, right? But at the same time, like, let's say for instance, like dance music, for instance, the dynamic range usually is much smaller, right? You have a four on the floor kick drum that's probably going throughout the whole song, and there's not much, maybe a little break in between for a vocal or something, but it's usually at a consistent level throughout. You can raise that up, right? And because it's that consistent level, and the vocal is not, or that quieter part is not trying to get pushed, 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 because it's usually as loud as, almost as loud as it as well. So it has a consistent level. So in that case, a lot of times you can push that dance music stuff louder. Also, stuff that has certain frequencies, like guitar music, and that's already like really distorted and stuff like that, you can kind of push that stuff a little louder too. Um, yeah, things like that, but just be careful on the loudness. It's not worth it. It's not worth to ruin your music. Your music is once you present it, it's there forever, right? You can't take it back. So just keep it to a moderate level. And if you want me to suggest a level, which I wasn't going to do, but I usually aim for maybe, I don't even want to say this, but I guess minus -9, -8 LUFS. If but don't keep that as a hard and fast rule. I don't go by the number. I go by where the music sounds great, and then maybe I'll try and push it slightly louder. If it does not sound good, I take it back to where it was, and that's it. And that's what the music tells me it wants to be at, right? I have to make people's music sound good, not sound good for the sake of loudness, like just smashing it up. I'm gonna go over some actually some loudness techniques as well, to help some people maybe that didn't know about these. They're not like some super CIA mastering engineer techniques. No, there's no secrets. There's no secret gear. There's no secret plugin. It's just it's basically mastering is very small moves, super small moves that all accumulate and combine into this one beautiful thing. So to get loud, you can do a couple of things like this will get you like a few decibels louder than you could already probably get doing it yourself. One technique, which is really good, I use a lot of times as well, but like I said in the beginning, I may work, so not all the time. Don't do this every time. um, Parallel compression. And parallel compression is basically you're using, I won't go into like super like geeky detail, 'cause that would be like 3 hours long, but you're basically using a compressor to compress the signal in parallel. So you're kind of mixing it in. So what happens is the reason you're doing that, um, to gain some loudness, is because you're not actually touching the dynamic range of the actual material, the real like not the real song, but like the song. Okay, so a compressor is going to take down the loud parts and bring them closer to the quieter parts, right? It's just going to go like this. So if the song had a dynamic range of this, you use a compressor and it just kind of closes it down a bit. Now you don't want to go aggressive in mastering. Okay, I'm going to get to the compressor part don'ts later. But yeah, so compression kind of clamps down, uh, makes the dynamic range smaller. So when you have your song, imagine it here, and then beside it, you have a compressed version, right? That you've compressed now, and you mix that into it's called parallel. You mix it in parallel just a little bit, right? What you're essentially doing is you're now increasing the loudness slightly, maybe two, three, probably no more than that. You don't want to go too much. You're just you basically put it on a parallel channel, bring up the fader slightly until you hear it kind of get a little louder, a little thicker, maybe little like low level information starts coming up slightly. You get a perceived loudness as well. So you're actually not compressing the original song. So you're not reducing the dynamic range. You're not destroying it, but you're kind of destroying the parallel one, but you're bringing it in and slowly mixing it in, which is going to give you a little bit of a lift. So that's one way, in a simplistic way to explain that. Another way is to use one of the plugins I like to use is the soft tube. I think it's called MM1. It's uh, I guess like a no, maximizer, I think it is. I use that. There's a parallel knob on it. I usually go 50% in transparent mode, and just there's another like I think there's a gain knob on the left or something, and I just go maybe like not more than 75%. And that's another parallel thing that you get. That's a maximizer, so it does a little, some funky stuff, but it's kind of cool. Brings it in. So you can do that. And then what else can you do? You can use your limiter. So you can use a clipper actually. Um, so what happens is with a clipper, it's kind of like a limiter, But what it's doing is it's shaving off the peaks of the track, the high. Let's say there's like transients. Guess everyone knows what a transient is, like a hit of a drum. Okay, so if there was a hit of a drum, it would just slightly cut it off, and then it adds with soft clipping, it adds a little bit of harmonic distortion, but very quickly, so you can't even hear it. So what happens is these transients actually are perceived to be louder, but they're not louder. You're actually gaining headroom, so you're gaining available space to push louder because you're just chopping off a peak and you're also making it sound perceivably louder. So it's kind of a two in one. So a couple of techniques you can do with that is what I usually do if I need to, um, not all the time, is I will clip before my limiter. So I just maybe like 1 dB, sometimes a dB and a half. It depends. Depends on how it sounds, depends on the song, all a bunch of stuff. But that's what you can do, and then you go into your limiter. So you're basically cheating in a way to gain a little bit more loudness, to raise the level up a little more without distortion or without perceived distortion that you can actually hear. Like, you won't hear that because the the actual clipper is so quick on the transient, you don't hear it, right? You hope you don't hear it. If you hear it, it's a little too much, then you want to like knock it back slightly. Another technique which you can do as well is you can clip use a clipper first before you do like any of your mastering, if you want to call it, like, it's all mastering. But before you start doing any equalization or compression or whatever else you do, you can use a clipper first, shave off like a little bit, half a dB, just a little bit, right? Going into all the other stuff, and then start doing all your processing. And then you can clip again, just a little bit, and then you can go to the limiter. That will allow you to basically go into your mastering process of your EQ and compression. It'll have a lot of effect on the compression because the dynamic range is slightly smaller. So it'll affect compression slightly. But again, I'm going to go over compression late in a few minutes because that's one of the like really bad things that happens a lot of times where I get mixes in, they're over compressed. But I'll get back to that in a minute. So yeah, you can go clip first, do your processing, clip a little bit more, and then go into your limiter. That'll allow you an extra few dB. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, test it out, see what happens. Those are a few things. Another thing to check with the limiter, there's FabFilter L2, which has three little tools on the bottom of the gain knob, I think it is. Has a lot to do with like a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning it'll match the loudness of your actual regular level even after you increase the gain. So when you're pushing it louder, it'll just keep it at the level it was at before. So you can, and when you bypass it, you can hear exactly how it sounds with the limiting, but not increase the loudness. So you can hear the difference, right? It'll allow you to hear that difference. And it'll also allow you to hear if there's distortion because you can kind of like A/B between the both, before and after, same loudness. There's also another button just in that same area, um, which has, I forgot what it's called, but anyways, it has like it's a delta function, which will allow you to hear what the actual limiter is doing to the signal, how much it's pushing it down and how much distortion it's doing, right? So that's also good to tell you, like if you don't really know what you're doing, you don't know if you're going too far, or you don't know if it's choking your mix too much, you can listen to that delta function, um, and you're just going to hear like, and like you hear the sucking of the compressor just like pushing down, and then you can just ease off a little bit and then go back to the regular mode and you'll kind of hear your mix breathing a little bit more, not as distorted. So those are the couple of ways to get loudness. How are we doing so far? Any questions?
You're doing
Great.
you're doing great,
So
Steve.
much great information. Thank you for this. We did have a couple questions actually. I can read them off to you if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so I guess so someone was asking about like radio ready.
Yeah.
And because we hear that a lot in the sync
Mhm.
world of like wanting the songs to be radio ready and kind
Yeah.
of what that means to you. You've already discussed a little bit about like the levels that you aim for, but I think just is are there other techniques you use to kind of make sure that your music is that you're making is
Yeah.
ready for that?
Um, as a mastering engineer, for me, it's mostly the balance. Like, I have to make sure that, the it's three things: low, mid, and high, that they're not overpowering each other. There's not too much bass, so it's not going to blow up somebody's speakers. There's not too much mid range, so it's not going to like fry their ears off when they turn it up in their car. Or there's not too much high end, which will do the same thing. It'll sound way too bright and brittle. That kind of that's one of the things where you have to be leery of when you're doing your own mastering is, high end can be very addictive. You can, once because you've come from the point of mixing the song, producing the song, all the other stuff, putting it all together, and maybe you kind of don't know where you have to go now. So I'll try and keep on target of that radio ready thing, but I just want to explain this. So you might go off course and be like, I'm not exactly sure what to do. So turning up the high end, obviously, it's going to sound better right away because it's brighter, right? But that's not always the case where it's going to be better. You know, you just have to like. I guess there might be some tools out there that will allow you to kind of gauge the. I don't use them. I don't know. I don't really know. I just make sure that things are balanced. That I know in my room, on my speakers, I trust them. That my levels are usually pretty balanced, that I know there's enough bass, there's not too little, not too much. Um, what I basically look for when I'm mastering a song is kick, vocal, and snare. So that's when I'm processing stuff because usually that's what happens is those are the stuff that get like heavily affected. They either get pushed back or brought forward when you're manipulating, EQ and compressors and stuff like that. Um, those those small things can really have like a huge effect, right? Like you can be adding some, I don't know, low end on a track, and all of a sudden when you go to A B it, that snare is almost gone. Like it's just pushed right back. It doesn't snap anymore. It doesn't have that whack anymore. So tonal balance. There we go. Yeah, isotope tonal balance. I think that I don't know how it works. I've never used it, but I think it helps you gauge like average tonal balance of like 100 different pop songs. I think you can do by genre, stuff like that. It'll give you. Like, I think it gives you your curve and then the curve of the average of those pop songs, and you can kind of match it. Um, one thing I recommend though is with that stuff, if you're gonna use that stuff, please use it at the beginning while you're like creating, mixing, not while you're mastering. Mastering is not about you know putting a whole, painting a whole wall, putting a whole can of paint, adding 10 dB of whatever 8K or it's not getting to that point where you were supposed to be before. You want to, because you're already in the project, you got to get as best as you possibly can. And that's also where I said in the beginning where the divide is between the DIY and the mastering engineer. And I was going to go over a few things there. So this goes in context with the radio ready thing is that when you're doing yourself, you're at the finish line and you don't know exactly what else you should do and you're just kind of adding stuff on. Oh, that sounds good. I'll keep it at that. Or maybe you kind of do, but you're still unsure, right? The mastering engineer will allow you to say, hey, this either sounds amazing, um, here's your product back, or, the high end, please turn it down, or there's not enough bass, or the bass is muddy, or your vocals too low, or I can't hear your snare, or it's too wide, or it's too narrow, stuff like that. It's going to give you confidence after and allow you. The mastering engineer should be working with you. Shouldn't just be like ordering a pizza and here you go and you leave it at the door and you run away. They should be working with you to get the absolute best out of your music. You know, a lot of times I'm sending back mixes for small things. And usually it's because I'll take in a song, I'll listen to it, and I'll start doing a few things. And I'm like, you know what? If they change that, that'll allow me to make it better. Right. So then I just send it back and say, listen, can you change this? Because it's kind of what I already did. And they send it back. So now it's even better. So then I can make it even better. And that's what the mastering engineer will do. The confidence in making things sound really, really good. Um, Radio ready, like I said, it's just that balance thing. You want to make sure there's not too much bass, there's not too much mid range, not too much high end. That's simple as that. You want to be able to hear the vocal, you want to be able to hear the snare, you want to be able to hear the kick. You don't want anything really clashing, and you don't want like muddiness. Like muddiness is like garble, like oh, like you things don't kick and bass should sound defined as a separate thing and but working together, right? Bass is a really big thing for music. Um, it's going to like a lot of people we love bass. So when you hear songs that are lacking a lot of bass, it kind of lacks the emotional impact of music, so I always really take a lot of like patience with the bass, making sure I can get that right, or making sure I send it back and make sure that they can come back to me with a better mix with better bass or even high end sometimes, whatever it is. But you you really have to pay attention to that stuff. That's why I said in the beginning the room and the speakers is very important. But yeah, again, there's that isotope stuff that will help you get radio ready. Um, yeah, that's the best I can explain it. I don't know. I've been listening to music my whole life, and as everybody else has, and I'm just kind of like, and I hear a lot of music every day from different people, so I kind of know how things should go. But it's not always like I want this here, I want that there. Sometimes there's music that it doesn't need to be like that, you know, and sometimes that's the greatest stuff where they go against the rules, and it's like and it makes a huge impact because it's so different, right? So it's not always about being the same too. Like if you were to look at, Dua Lipa, Taylor Swift, The Weekend, and they all kind of like blend that same kind of genre sort of, a little bit. Every mix is not balanced exactly the same, not one of them, I guarantee you. And that's because it has to do with taste, it has to do with composition, right? Instruments, uh, drum machines, whatever, guitars, things like that of nature used, the way they're approaching the track, the impact they want to deliver, right? So they might go through these things and adjust them in different ways that are not like the other tracks, right? And it's still that's radio ready because they're releasing it, right? So radio ready is kind of like a term, but not really something I would, not everything has to be the same, put it that way, right? It just needs to sound its best. Hopefully I kind of botched that, but hopefully I can,
No, that
give you
was
a bit of
great.
an idea on that. Any other questions?
If anyone else has questions, please pop them in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can bring you on for a minute.
So I will go over
Um,
do's and don'ts if you
yeah,
want.
yeah, let's do that for now.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go over the don't because I get a lot of the don'ts in here and I don't like them. So don't mix into a limiter. Um, it's it, it's not if you don't know what you're doing, even if you know what you're doing, just it's a dumb thing to do, especially if you're going to send it off to a mastering engineer. Um, you can check it with a limiter. That's a great thing to do. You know, put a limiter on. Once you're done your mix and you check the loud to see if things are distorting. Maybe if you can see if you have to adjust things. But if you are mixing into a limiter, you're just pushing stuff into the ceiling of this limiter, and it's just pushing it down. And then there's not going to be enough headroom, and the mastering engineer, even yourself, is not going to be able to get the best out of the song because it's lacking all dynamics, right? And then if you send it to a mastering engineer, they're going to say, please take the limiter off. What's going to happen is like those cans when I don't probably when I was a kid anyway, you open and all the snakes come out or whatever, those little things. That's basically what's going to happen to the mix. It's going to fall apart. It's going to explode. There's going to be super loud things and super quiet things, and it's going to be uncontrolled and all over the place, right? Then you're going to have to go back and remix the whole thing, and it's going to be a disaster. So it's not a good thing to do, and it's going to cause pumping. Um, just to keep it simple, just don't do that. You don't need to do it. If that's something you feel is necessary for you and that's your sound, by all means, go for it. But um, I would stay away from that. Huge thing is aggressive compression. And in mastering, I use like very little compression. Like a lot of stuff comes in compressed like crazy already, but I'm not compressing a lot. I use compressors for their sound and for vibe, like feeling. It gives me like a bounce or just some kind of feeling, and so other things too as well. Like I have an API 2500 there that it's a compressor, but it also does a bunch of other stuff that are very, you know, intricate and small, but they allow me to manipulate certain things like width and high end and stuff like that, not just compressing, right? So I don't really use aggressive compression, and you shouldn't use aggressive compression. Aggressive compression in mastering at all, even on the mix bus as well before you go to mastering, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a mix in here that someone sent me, and all of a sudden when there's a huge dense part or like a big hit or something, all of a sudden the mix just gets choked. It just closes in. It was like here and then it went, and then it comes slowly opens back up. And I'm like, yep, they had a compressor on there a little bit too aggressive. So what you should do is if you're going to use compressors for glue, there's two things you can do. One is you can make sure you find the loudest part of your mix and you can set your compressor there. I'm not going to give you settings, but you can set your compressor there. So it's going to react to that loudest part, right? And so you're not going to be over compressing. That'll allow you to not destroy your mix that way and not get this disgusting closing in of your mix, which completely destroys it. Um, Also, what you can do is you can get a limiter, and I think I already mentioned this. You can check with a limiter to see if things are like hitting a little too hard before you send it to mastering or before you master it. You can adjust certain things there, or even a limiter will also tell you. So every limiter does something different and to different material. But if you're going to use that limiter, it can tell you things that you wouldn't know. Like sometimes you put a limiter on, even with a couple of dB of gain reduction, um, the vocal might get pushed back, or the snare might get pushed back, or the kick might get choked, or the bass might just. If you're usually if you're limiting, this is my next point. If you're limiting too much, like for loudness, you're closing in a mix, and usually you can hear it in the bass. The bass gets it's hard to explain, but the bass will have dynamic range, like it'll have notes, right? Those notes are like, let's just say up and down, up and down, up and down. You're closing the gap between the up and down. It's getting smaller and smaller. So those notes are starting to bleed into each other. So instead of having like a boop, 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 you have like a that's what happens to the bass. You're starting to get it more compact to get more loudness, right? That's where you can really destroy the mix, right? You just choke the living crap out of the space. It's not good. Um, how many dB of gain reduction on my mess? I can't tell you that because every mix is different. It depends on what it comes in at, and yeah, don't do a lot. Basically, less is more, pretty much every
We
time. Also, what
we
else?
had a question
Yeah,
from Jessica. I think Jessica, do you still
yeah.
have a question? You can raise your hand again, and if you do, and I will bring you on. Um, or maybe not. Oh, is Jessica even here?
Yeah, I just pinned her. Can you see her on the main screen?
Oh yeah, great. Thank you. Yep, perfect. Should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Steve, thank you for all this
Yep.
gold.
No
What
problem.
I'm wondering is when I've had this mastered, like I kind of am consistently seeing my music come back where I have like consonants missing and inflections in my voice that I feel like kind of gave it that edge and gave it that emotion. Those are missing. And
Okay.
so I don't know what's being done for that to happen, but I'm wondering, like, if I'm going to try to do it myself, what should I try to avoid? That, like, what do you think is making that effect?
Okay, I can tell you exactly what happens there. So it's
Okay.
called so they're sibilants, plosive, and phonetics usually. So it's like the S's, the P's, the F's, stuff like that. You may be recording it maybe a little too hot, so they're kind of like coming out a little bit too much, so they kind of hurt the ear. So to keep it simple, what the mastering engineer is, they're using a de-esser. So it's basically like a compressor for high end, and they kind of like it tames that. Maybe they're taming it a little too much because it shouldn't be where to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. It should still be
Yeah.
there, but it shouldn't like bite you when it comes out. Because as a mastering engineer in here, I can hear that stuff a lot better than most people can that don't have better rooms or better monitoring. So I hear it a lot of the time. Most of the time, what I do instead of taking care of it right away, I send it back and I say, can you just take care of these couple of things? Usually they do it a little bit, and that's good because they can do it on the actual vocal, not on the whole thing. And then I do it a little bit more maybe, but it sounds natural. I got to keep it sounding natural. So if you were to do it yourself, one good technique, and this also depends because it depends on your phone. The phone speakers, they're really crappy, right? They're really, really crappy, like super
Yeah.
crappy speakers, and they break really quickly, and we don't even know sometimes, right? But anyways, especially iPhone speakers, I found they really show the sibilants, like the s and the p, stuff like that, really well. So you're still going to have that stuff on there, and you need it, right, for the ear to pick it out and define the word and stuff like that. But if it's way too much, and you're doing it yourself, you can kind of gauge it on the phone a little bit to see if you don't
Mm.
really know what you're doing. I wouldn't say that's like the go-to thing, but that's one thing you can check, right? Because that'll allow you, without like a good environment and good monitoring, to kind of pick out small details like that. But just
Okay. Awesome.
don't
So
don't
are
go overboard. Yeah.
Oh, I think Jessica was frozen for a second. Oh, you're back.
sorry, you're cutting out a bit.
Oh,
That
okay.
very
So
last
yeah, just
little bit. It
basically I
sounds
was
like
saying
so.
just don't. Sorry, go on.
Is it so? It sounds like, are you saying it's something that I need to tweak in production, pre-mastering, and that's going to help the
Usually,
mastering
yes.
process?
I can't hear it, and I don't know what the person is doing, but most of the time, that's the case. Yeah, it usually should be
Okay.
taken care of before. The mastering engineer should make you aware of that. If it's a big issue, there's some things we can do where it can still sound natural if it can't be done to taken care of beforehand. But like you were saying, you didn't like it. That means it's unnatural, right? So that means you can really notice it. That means it had to be sent back. It had to be taken care of, and or there's a software that we use is Isotope RX, which allows us to kind of like dive deep inside the actual music without affecting the whole thing. It allows us to take care of some of that stuff too. But if you can take care of it in the actual mix part, it's way better, right? You can send it
Awesome.
like if build a rapport with the mastering engineer if you do use a mastering engineer, and send the mix to them and ask them. Like people send me stuff before I'm gonna even if I'm not gonna master it. Sometimes they'll say, "Hey, can I throw a mix by you?" I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I'll just say, "Listen, there's this, do that, do this." Even I have a lot of people that they still do mastering themselves, but they like to throw me some mixes once in a while. I still do it. I don't mind,
Oh,
and I just tell them, "Listen, it helps them get better too, right?" And maybe one day they'll come to me, maybe they won't, but I like to help people as well. So yeah, just don't go overboard, but yeah, you probably want to take care of that a little bit.
okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thanks, Jessica. That was a great question. If you don't mind, Steve, we've
Yeah.
got time, maybe hopefully for just one more question.
Sure.
And Sam asked a question up here. Have you done any mastering in spatial audio, like for Apple iTunes yet?
Uh,
If not, do you think you'll move in that
Atmos.
direction?
Atmos. I have an opinion on Atmos, and at the current time, I have not done any Atmos. I don't have an Atmos room. Um, the thing is, Atmos mastering at this time kind of doesn't really exist at this time. It's because it does in a way where the proper 9.1 setup, I think it's a 9.1, which is, all the speakers around with a sub and the 3 or 4 speakers, whatever it is behind there. I've been in a room, it sounds cool, but my personal opinion think that it's just like a extra on top. It's not gonna, I'm gonna say this, it's not gonna be the new, standard. It won't be. The reason is they have to change a lot of stuff. There's a lot of problems right now. It's been around for a long time. But anyways, I won't get on that train because that'll be 6.5 hours long. But I haven't done any, and I'm not considering it at this time, because I'm not a mix engineer. I'm a mastering engineer. Atmos is more of a mixing thing, and it's not technically, it's not the same as like mixing as people are used to right now, like stereo mixing. Completely different mindset. You have to position things in a different way. Um, you can get creative and throw crap around everywhere and all the speakers. That doesn't mean it's going to translate down. It's like not going to fold down to a stereo mix in the end and going to sound good. So there's 2 ways to approach it. You go from the ground up where you produce the song for Atmos. That's probably the best way. Or there's a mastered stereo file that is kind of like reverse engineered and remixed into Atmos. Then there's a few Grammy winning engineers that I know. They do some Atmos mastering. Some of them do mixing too. They have super good rooms. And they're basically at the current time is just checking the translation and checking how it sounds on their system and where it's going to sound to other systems, because that's going to go to Apple's going to push it. They can push it, but the thing is, there's a million people uploading music, right? What about all the people that can't do Atmos? They're not going to upload it anymore. That doesn't make Apple's going to lose, 50% of their target market, or even Spotify, and what I mean. I think if it comes to a point where, and this is all if stuff anyway, is my theories, but I think if it comes to a point where there's a standardization, it's going to create another kid in their bedroom creating Napster Part 2 or whatever, something where people are going to start uploading their own music too again, because people want to make music. People want their music out there. They don't care that some people don't care if it sounds amazing. They don't care if it's mastered by a pro. They don't care if it's mixed by a pro. They want their music out there. They want to share it with the world, right? They don't care if it's Dolby Atmos or spatial audio or they don't care, right? They're chopping beats up and rapping over it or whatever, or singing over it or whatever, and putting it out there, and it sounds like crap and they love it, right? It's just going to create another portal for people to share what they love, right? But yeah, sorry, I went off again, but to answer the question, I'm not doing Atmos at this time.
Great. Thanks for answering these questions, Steve. Yeah, I think we just reached the end of our hour, which is crazy. Went by so fast, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for fitting all that information in such a short time. It was really great information to get from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you so
problem.
much, Steve. And I'm just really
Anytime.
Yeah, we're such a big fan here at Earthstar, and we recommend you all the time to people who are looking
Thank you.
for. And so we truly, this is a super valuable information. It's like, this is a human touch, sure, you can use these automated, equipment or plugins and techniques. But I think with the ear that you give it and the attention and the detail, it just really shows in your work. So thank you.
Thank
for
you.
this.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Carl's just dropped Steve's website and Facebook and everything if you'd like to
Yeah.
check out his
Yeah,
work.
I'm like a late bloomer to social media, so
Yeah, no
thank you.
worries. That's great. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. So good to see all of you, and hopefully we'll see you at our next workshop. And thank you again, Steve, for everything.
Anytime. Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Send it
Thank
to
you.
Thank you.
pandionmusicfoundation.org, pandionmusicfoundation.org. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.